I do not have. We are live. Kathy.
Good evening. I'd like to call our board meeting, our regular board meeting to order. Today is Monday, June 6th. Members present in the boardroom, we have member Wilson, Jacobs, Holloman, Higgins, Donley, and Bellamy. Online, we have member Lessons. So all board members are present. We also have our student representative, Miss Ellie Shaw, along with Dr. Bishop, our superintendent, and of course, Katie Grant, our executive assistant. So we'd like to, with that, we are now called to order. I've done a roll call, and please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And whenever you're ready, Michelle.
On behalf of the Anchorage School Board, I want to take a moment to recognize and offer gratitude for the sacred ancestral lands of the Deena people. We acknowledge and appreciate that our offices, facilities, and schools are on these sacred indigenous lands, and we honor the traditional care that has been given to this land throughout generations. We are grateful for the opportunity to grow, learn, work, and create educational communities on this sacred land. We extend continued respect for the many cultures, creativity, and resilience of its indigenous peoples. Chanan.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to item A3, approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Moved and second to approve the agenda. Any discussion, opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, the agenda is approved as presented. That brings us to item B, our Student Advisory Board report.
Okay, so SAB, or Student Advisory Board, last met on April 12th, and we won't be meeting again until September. The 2021 to 2022 school year has officially come to a close for students. Track and field for high school held their state championship at Diamond a couple weeks ago, and also for high school, South High won the state championship for baseball and softball on past Saturday. Girls softball was in Fairbanks, and boys baseball was against Sitka at Mulcahy Stadium. I know the Apex online classes have started for those enrolled, and I already know, at least for South, we are making plans already for next school year. I did meet with Sarah Price, the student representative for the assembly, and her and I talked with ways to help bring awareness for students' mental health within the district. She presented our ideas at the joint meeting on Friday, so I'm excited to see the resolution and the survey and how that can go with the community in general. And SAB will be at the event tomorrow at Turnagain Elementary for the signing of Alaska Reads Acts. So we are super excited to be working around, helping out the district. So I think that's it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And yes, we did get the resolution. It has been forwarded to our governance committee. And everybody was very impressed, by the way, with your the work that you and Sarah did. So thank you very much. So at this time, I'd like this is item C, is a special recognition for tonight. We have a young lady. Whoa, it's not going to let me get it out. We have a young lady. That means
Keep saying young lady. I'm good.
Okay, I'll try it. No. Over here. Test. Okay.
Oh, it is.
Here we go. We're going to do Donna. Oh, is that Jinx? No, here we go. You ready?
We have so tonight is a very special night in many, many ways. Dr. Bishop, you need to come up here too. This is this young lady. Last board meeting. Okay, so we wanted to do a very special recognition. It will never be goodbye because you are like blazoned in. But we did want to show our appreciation for your time, your service, your and to that end, we have a resolution that we would love to share. Whereas Bishop has served as the Anchorage School District Superintendent from July 2016 through June 2022, leading more than 1,000 employees, operating schools in support of 4,000 students. Again, Kelly, can you hear?
I can. Hopefully you can hear me. Whereas I'm getting feedback. Dr. Bishop developed, implemented, and secured legislative funding for many value-added programs to include foreign language immersion programs, an increase in career technical education, the Alaska Middle College School for 11th and 12th grade students to attend the University of Alaska Anchorage, expanded preschool, and many others. And
whereas Dr. Bishop worked with families, community members, our children. She worked tirelessly throughout her career, focusing on improving outcomes for students. And whereas Dr. Bishop worked with districts for numerous high-pressure periods, to include closing 2 daycare schools, responding to a 7.1 magnitude earthquake in 2008, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Focus on providing information to families, students, and staff, help bring a sense of normalcy during an otherwise chaotic period. And whereas Dr. Bishop offered the district's education center and more than 100 nurses in support of the city's largest vaccination site that students' COVID vaccines were available, inoculating more than 1,000 people per day over several months. Her efforts allowed the municipality to transition away from constant lockdowns, which allowed schools to fully open again.
Whereas under Dr. Bishop's leadership, graduation rates are the highest that the Anchorage School District has seen in decades.
Whereas Dr. Bishop worked collaboratively with the Anchorage School Board in forming and setting new strategic plan for the district through board's goals and guardrails. These high-reaching goals are crucial and will lead to increased student achievement for ASD students. And
whereas Dr. Bishop's early work at the state and local level on the Alaska Reads Act and her passion and visionary work in ASD to address reading and literacy will benefit students across the district and state of Alaska.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anchorage School District School Board recognizes and honors Dr. Deena Bishop for her leadership of the last 6 years and unwavering dedication to the students of the Anchorage School District. We will miss you. Come back anytime. I'm going to let you read that one. Now, Ellie, you have to read the certificate. And I'd like to, Corey Anks, could you join us, please? Just read it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your leadership and dedication to the Anchorage School District. We are grateful for your years of commitment to educational excellence for our students and staff.
Now you can give it to her.
Thank you.
Oh, look at you guys.
Well, I get punched over here, so
you gentlemen.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Corey,
More.
hold on to that. Corey, could you come up, please? Looks like the echo sound.
Thank you, Margot. I just wanted to say on behalf of all the educators in the school district, thank you, Dr. Bishop, for leading us through these unprecedented, it's a cliche, unprecedented times. We really appreciate your leadership and all the challenges that we went through together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we got our flowers, we got our basket, our certificate. Kathy, you ready for the next piece? Kathy's got a
Dr. Bishop, it has been an honor to work with you. I am so grateful for all you've done for ASD. You've been an incredible leader, strong during so many tough situations. You've brought instruction as a focus as a superintendent. You bring humor to the room, and I just find you to be somebody I really admire. Thank you for being an incredible leader. Thank you for being a friend. I wish you the best in this next journey and to do so many things that you weren't able to do while you were giving so much to ASD. So congratulations, and you will be greatly missed.
Dr. Bishop, it has been an honor and a privilege to work with you and work beside you these last 6 years. I can tell you that you have led with courage, with conviction, you've led with deep principles, and you've always put children first. And what I can tell you now is you get to have the greatest experience of all, which is spending the next few years putting your own grandchildren first. Good luck to you in all that you do.
Dr. Bishop, I don't know where to begin. I want to give you my appreciation and also just to express my gratitude to you for being such a strong leader, steadfast person, and someone who is always available and around. You can't find that often, and I just want to let you know how much your leadership has meant to me, and I've absorbed many aspects of what you do, what you say, and how I see you lead in my own leadership style. And I just want to commend you on your service here with the Anchorage School District, and to say I just commend you and good luck on your next journey and your pathway. I know you're not done because you have so much to share and give. So I look forward to seeing where you land soon, because wherever you land, I'm sure they'll appreciate all the service that you'll provide them. Good luck, and thank you again for all that you've done for Anchorage School District and for me.
Hey, Deena, I just want to thank you for giving me the chance to work with you and for you for the past 6 years. It's been an amazing ride. I can't think of a better leader I've ever worked for, a better teammate, and now at the end of 6 years, a better friend. Thank you.
Dr. Bishop, thank you for being the champion for reading. You always kept students first and our focus on reading, because reading matters. Your passion is inspirational, and you have made a difference for the students in ASD. Good luck in the next chapter of your life, and know you will be missed.
Hey, Dr. Bishop, just wanted to say thank you and congratulations on your upcoming retirement. I just first wanted to say thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting me in my work with the Alaska Children's Trust in my time as a director in elementary. As we know, working in those positions aren't easy, and you've had 6 years being in a tough position where you've had to make some really tough decisions, whether it was on masking or getting us through a natural disaster, and then moving through 2.5 years of COVID, and knowing that every decision that you made was going to really upset somebody. And you charged through that, and you stuck by what you said, and that's making the best decisions for our ASD students and for our families. I just really hope the best for you in your retirement. I really hope that you get to spend some time with your family and just relax and just take in everything that you did accomplish in your time as superintendent for the Anchorage School District. All right. Take care, Dr. Bishop. Happy trails.
When I imagine or think about fearless leaders, or if I were to look it up in a dictionary, I would see a picture of Dr. Bishop. She is by far one of the most remarkable, studied, researched, emotionally intelligent leaders that I've ever met. I don't want to cry during this message, although I feel like I am. Thank you, Dr. Bishop, for modeling what leadership can look like. Thank you for leading with the mantra of what's best for children. Thank you for a life, a career dedicated to Alaska's children. You've given this girl from Brooklyn an amazing opportunity to be able to walk out your vision for equity, to make sure that all children receive a fair and equitable education here in Anchorage School District. So thank you for girls like me. Thank you on behalf of our students for all that you've done and all the trails that you've blazed. Thank you.
Hi, Deena. Hey, thank you for everything you've done, your leadership for the Anchorage School District. It just amazes me when I think about the tens of thousands of kids that you've influenced in your time as an educator. I want to wish you the best in your future. And again, thank you for all that you've done for me and for the Anchorage School District.
Hi, Dr. Bishop. Thank you so much for allowing me to serve on your team for the last 6 years. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your mentorship. And thank you for your friendship. I can't wait to see how things go, and I wish you the best of luck as you write your third story. Thanks.
Dr. Bishop, Deena, it's not an exaggeration to say that I've worked with you every minute of my education career. I want to thank you for the collegiality and the leadership. I'm going to miss you. You've been instrumental in my career, but I'm also really happy for you and wish you the best. And whatever's next for you, take care.
I had a page, I can't find my notes, and I know I'm not going to remember all of them, but you guys will help me remember. When you hear certain things, when you hear certain phrases, they do click. So yes, let me see if I get it right. We measure what we treasure. We've got the Gimba. And, oh, what's the other one? There's so many of them. Oh, that's right. When we know better, we do better. Absolutely. That must be in my other book, but I wrote them all down. But anyway, leaders do that. They leave you with little nuggets of wisdom. And for that, and being a person who was in this district before you came, you are leaving us in pretty good space. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm honored. Thank you. It's been a privilege to serve for 32 years, the students of Alaska and the people. Thank you.
Enjoy some cupcakes. Enjoy saying goodbye, not goodbye, just so long. Farewell, howdy-do, whatever you want to do, but say, and give your best wishes to Dr. Bishop. Thank you. So we will come back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I know, and you are. I'm just trying, I had my list of adages.
You lost it.
I can't find it. I thought I wrote them down in my, oh, We'd like to welcome everybody back. Welcome back. Thank you for your patience. We felt it important to have just that little bit of thank you, appreciation, whatever it feels like, but we needed to do that. I'd like to also give a huge shout out. We missed his last board meeting. At least I wasn't thinking far enough ahead, for Mr. Tom Roth. His last day was last week. I couldn't talk him into coming back tonight. So I do want to give a huge thank you to him for his service, for the work that he has done on behalf of the students, families, and staff in the Anchorage School District. So with that, we're going to move on to our agenda. We are now at item D, which is our goal monitoring. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. And as per the schedule, our outcome monitoring for math proficiency is presented. And we, due to not having a second meeting, we're just going to spend a little bit more time and just talk about it now. And then the questions that you have further at the retreat, Dr. Stock will be there as well as Dr. Bryant to answer additional questions if you have any as you retreat and review goals and guardrails. So with that, I will begin just as a review for the math proficiency goal, and this update is on the interim goals. So the primary goal was 40 to 55%. And as you recall, we did update this a little bit and put AK star in there because when the board wrote these years and years ago, I think in 19 they were written and finally adopted in 20. And the state test has since changed. The idea from 40% proficiency to 55 is a smaller increment than the reading. And remember, the discussion around that was the capacity to be able to reach goals. So this one is 15% until 2026. The interim goal, however, they're twofold. Basically, we're utilizing internal assessments, which is the MAP growth assessment that students take 3 times a year, that parents get a report, that it's an electronic dynamic test, meaning that it will test a student until they get about 48 to 52% of the questions right or wrong. And it really just determines their learning level, where they are. And as opposed to the STAR test, which is directly grade level related. So you will be able on the interim goal, the MAP, to know who is possibly behind grade level, but who is well above it. If students are above grade level, we continue to want them to continue to learn and continue to grow. So with the MAP growth, the way that, just to share a little bit, the outcomes and the scores are given in what's called a RIT number. And there's different RIT growth expectations per grade levels. As opposed to the AK star, that is normed and benchmarks given on a smaller amount of students, over 20 million students go into the data to understand growth for MAP growth. So it's utilized across the country and actually in other countries as well. So our interim goal for MAP growth was to move it from the present state of 48.4 to 50 in spring. And we have hit above that target. And what that demonstrated to us is that it was a healthy goal. We had written this when kids weren't in school. And so we were very happy when kids came back and they were learning their math, that we were really in a good spot to move forward. On this, as you can see, the target, we really want 90% over time of kids in MAP growth should hit the target. And just so you know, the the targets are related around a percentile. And what's different than that, so we're going to talk about percent of students, but what we want them to achieve is the 40th percentile, which if you recall, straight line with a bell curve, 50 is the middle. And so they take all scores and then line the kids up, if you will, or the scores up. And then that middle section would be the percentile that we want. The 50th percentile is the expected score. And above that, they're doing, standard deviations, ahead of that or below. So the 40th percentile is the target to say that they met that growth. Just to share that. Sometimes it gets confusing when we use percentages and percentiles. But this is that the percentage of grade 3 through 9 students. And so what we're talking about is the percent of students at a certain level. And so the assessment is that for the interim target that we sent, we were above. And so we'll make a stretch goal for that moving into next year. That one will most likely be reassessed. But we can take a look at 2021. At the end of last year, we were at 48.5%. 21-22, we are at 52%. So we're quite proud of that. It shares the number of students. So over 20,000 students of ASD were in that draw. And you can look at the number of students has also increased from the very first year that we used MAP because we utilize it more extensively now. However, last year, you can see the small amount of students that went into that. Can move to the next slide. We do share as part of the monitoring for which the board has asked us to share information about the required reporting data on students at the federal level. We've been asked about other groups and this and that, but what we've done to standardize it is to use what is actually going to be represented in other literature that the board or our public might have access to. So these are the federally selected student groups. And at the top are the ethnicity or race groups, and at the bottom are other special program groups. And as you can see, these are just from fall to fall. And I want to point out again that it isn't the test and the expectations or the assessment are dynamic, meaning that what we expect kids to know in the fall in September when they take this assessment, we expect them to know and have grown by a certain amount by the fall. So similar to reading, our growth throughout the year, although we started with our interim goal at a very comfortable spot, we continued to, some students continue to fall off target. And so we want to provide additional supports. And our math team has been phenomenal in leading that in regard to the teacher supports, the use, in win time, what I need now to redirect, as well as really practice on iReady, which is an electronic, really, when I subbed in schools this winter, I got to experience firsthand. It's sort of like a video game, but it's math problem solving. It's wonderful. So from a math teacher, it was pretty engaging and fun. It was bright and kind of cool for kids, and they really tried to get good answers. And when they didn't get a correct answer, it would teach them in a great way with different avatar things to help them out. So good practice there in that program. So one of the feedback forms, just to let you know with these data, is when we share that we do have, as a math teacher, this is hard to say, but because I love math, but math is probably more difficult to teach for people to teach or to feel confident in teaching. Because many educators come to education feeling like they weren't great math people. So the beauty of that is the consistency in our programming from school to school is actually pretty strong because we kind of stick to what we know in the plan, which is beneficial. That's some of the feedback from our staff. We have improved our schools in the near target, but again, and we did reduce the schools that were below target, so we're really quite happy about that. We're moving them in the right direction. So here is the information by grade level. And as you can see, although these scores are on target and above target, for the growth that we had asked, the MAP growth assessment in grades 3 through 9, it's not quite, we lost a little ground, but we're still quite happy with those, the learning that's going on in our classrooms. Again, this represents the percentage of students who were at least at the 40th percentile, okay, on that assessment. So that the very beginning of that bell curve, a couple standard deviations below. So the next steps, this is just the chart that shares where are we in the progress, where are we building capacity around math and math learning, not only for our instructors, but also for our students. And this shares, again, the goal, the instructional focus, as well as the approach. And it's a do, learn, do, do, learn, do, do, learn, do. So we're not going to ever arrive at a practice that works for everything. We're going to continue to grow and learn and use empirical evidence to help us get better. For Mr. Holloman, because when we know better, we do better. So these are the items and the implementation stages that Dr. Knudsen led with her math folks, and Amanda Barr is in there, as well as Dr. Bellamy. So they're the lead team with Dr. Knudsen that lead the math work. So the interim goal 2.2, this one is when we talk about 4 kids that we know that did not make the 40th percentile, what are we doing to catch them up? Because we know that we can continue to learn year for year, but if we are behind, we actually need to grow like a year and a quarter and a year and a quarter so that we can close that gap. What we do not want to do is to have kids who are on a high trajectory to close the gap get worse. We don't want that to happen. We want everyone moving up in proficiency. If you're in schools for a year, you need to learn at least a year, if not more, to catch up. So this isn't about closing the gap. This is about all students learning, like the school district's mission says. So 2.3 is the percentage of, this is where we have the 40th percentile. That's what we're saying is making it. Who are the kids that didn't? We want to get at least in their growth, that is, not their total outcome, but that they're growing in the group that would be the 75th percentile. So of all the kids that grow, where are they on that plane? We want our kids to be the best growers out of the 20 million. So that, just so you know the difference between percentile and percentage and how we're looking at this. And our goal was 21%, and we didn't quite make that goal. And this is the evidence behind it. In spring of 2019, the percentage of students that made catch-up growth was just under 20%. So our goal for this year was 21, and we landed at about 19, or 18% almost. So I'll just go through this so that you know the number of kids tested. In order to be in this group, you had to have the assessment twice. So students tested in the fall, students tested in the spring. How many were tested in both fall and spring? Those are the only kids that we can look at for growth, because growth is between 2 points in time. And we have a very high, in the lower grades, kind of a high percentage of kids that were actually in those capture data. As they get older, it moves to about 80%. Students tested at both fall and spring that were below benchmark in the fall. So that's the number that we found that were below the benchmark, that did not make that 40th percentile. So those are the kids that are farther behind other students. Of those, the next, if you look at the 242 and all the way down, those are the exact number, the N of students who did make that high growth. So we made some impact on kids. And the next one gives you the percentage of kids that actually of the students who needed, of the 1,261, 242 made it, and that's a little over 19% of the kids. So 1/5 of the kids did make that catch-up growth in third grade, about 1/5. That's where we're residing, and it goes in ninth grade, it's harder and harder. And this represents, I think when I talked to the assembly, because I shared the most recent monitoring, the assumption is that we don't care about math and we don't care about college career readiness. And really, I should have prefaced that a little better in my feedback and review in my brain, that there was a lot of assumptions made because people didn't hear things. And so this is very similar, math is, to reading, of students who are far below. And we've done some studies on them, and students who are far below also have other things in common. And one of them is the number of times that they move. They're moving schools. And so we understand that students struggle when they change schools. That's evidenced. We have that empirical evidence. We'll share that with you. What do we do then as adults to not make that as problematic for students whose parents happen to move from one home to another? So even we have students who've moved 7 times in a school year. We have students that we can count since the time that they've been in kindergarten, how many times have they moved? And the number of moves is the same indicator, reverse of their achievement. We know that we struggle in that area. And with about 30% of our kids experiencing this, what helps is that we begin to have similar expectations when we move from school to school. So keeping that alignment of what's happening, a standardization of expectations, and then a customization of schools. But that standardization is there to ensure that when kids do move, the data are represented in our math and our reading, especially for our younger ones. And it's just tougher and tougher as they get older, as the data demonstrate, to catch kids up. Because the more you're in school, the more you're expected to know. So you have less time to teach more. That's what our teachers face. So the groups of interest, when then you say, okay, those are the grade levels, where are the groups of interest with the MAP, with the spring math growth? Again, we want them to improve. So it's not that they met the mark yet, but they are growing expectedly, so that they're growing more than a year is what we need them to do. 50th percentile is year for year. 75 is that they're making up time. So we're real happy that kids are making up time. But in our student groups, they're very similar to what we see in others about the growth that they're making. So again, the N is provided so that you can see the difference. How many kids are we really talking about? And then what percentage are they? And so we want to celebrate that in these groups, about 1/6 to 1/5 of our kids were making it up. But in order to meet the board's goals, we're going to have to improve that. Even given the absences of instructors, of teachers, throughout this year because of the pandemic. So fall to spring MAP growth, groups of interest. I shared the ethnicities and the races, and now here are the other federally and state reported student groups: English learners, non-English learners, special education, non-special education, and economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged. So you can see when kids have headwinds, we call it, for learning, that they have things that aren't ideal necessarily. When you're just learning English and you're being taught in English, that's hard to do. Those of you that have taken a foreign language, if you're trying to learn a content in a foreign language and you're just grasping your foreign language, that's a difficult task. So our kids with those superpowers of multiple languages actually have some headwinds. Special education students with intellectual disabilities or others, they have a headwind as opposed to a tailwind moving behind them. So as with reading, we just want to share that the board reports are presented to answer your questions and the goals and the guardrails that you've presented with administration of the values and the vision that you've outlined. What we do in administration is to build competencies, build trust in school teams to understand this, build trust hopefully with the board to understand it so that the work can be done, is use supplemental data so that in the classroom, the discussions really happen at the level of schools, because that's really important. And you have shared at this meeting and others, well, we just talk about numbers all the time. And just so we know, again, it's not about the numbers increasing. We should never say we want the data to increase. We want this. Actually, we want learning to increase. And how do we know? Well, we use assessments to know. So children in schools are behind these data. And what we want is for the data to be useful to the people who have the value of the work, which is our teachers. Our teachers have the highest value in classrooms to change the work. So understanding the needs of their students and the headwinds that they might have, and then supporting teachers in the difficulties and having school plans around that with good leadership will move us forward. So the supplemental data that also I shared the training is for, you can go to it, for Edunomics, that when we saw sight of that, we wanted to study it more because we know we're going to have, as we move forward, decisions made. And this is for us to see that it is the actual average change in percentile. So it's, did they move percentile? And you want to move up or to the right on your percentile. This is on the left, so you want to move upwards on that line. You want to be in positive improvement, not negative. And what we want to do is learn from the schools that are really making an impact. We need to learn from each other because we do have excellence and understanding of, wow, what's happening in that school that we could replicate. And you can see that the circles are not identified yet because we're just building this data bank. It usually will come with red and green, but they're blue right now. The red and green will share higher socioeconomic and lower socioeconomic, but you can understand, we can share that information with you about which ones, where schools are located. But then the bottom is the actual cost per student that actually goes into that school. And these are the cost per student in FY21 because the cost per student has not been audited. And we do not present data until they're audited. And that is Jim's rule. So he wants to be able to say, this is really this. And so he'll finish his report and be able to upload that. But Jim Anderson and Dr. Akes and others create these data for looking at what is the value of where we're spending money and having learning happen. Okay, it's not the value of increasing a score. Like somebody can get in a computer and increase a score, but a student's learning is behind this. And so we have some outliers in the positive. We have some outliers who have made a negative change. They just elicit another conversation. Is there something going on there? What can we talk about? But those conversations are in support with supervisors in different departments and school to share what are the needs at the school that would make those differences. They're different at different schools, and that's why this work hits the classroom. It should hit the classroom teams, the grade level teams, things like that. But we have some positive outliers. So then we want to go, whoa, what's happening there? How'd they do that? And that engenders our principals and our school teams working together. So with that, I think that is the last slide. We're going to build these out additionally for different grade levels. And, this one we have high schools and elementary, but again, the high school only went up to 9th grade. We do not have MAP assessment as a practice after 9th grade in all students, unless it's needed to understand through IEP. Some of our IEPs use MAP growth as their assessment. So with that, I can answer any questions as best I can. The Edgeonomics work is going to get better and better as the team, works towards proficiency and understanding that. And again, I know that some more board members had a half-day session on that. And Mr. Anderson, what was the thing that you guys did? What was like a certificate or something, a certificate program?
It's a certificate in education finance.
Okay, yeah.
And it's 1 week residency and 7 weeks correspondence.
Okay, yeah. So they're working on that. So as the board looks at movement forward when we don't have as much federal money coming in, I think to meet goals, then we ask, where's the value in learning? And are things the same? Are they different? Do they have headwinds, the same tailwinds? We start to dig down. And again, it's not an I gotcha or a place blame. It's let's identify the problem and work together as a team for student learning. And that is our goal.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Are there any questions for Dr. Bishop? Because we won't have a second opportunity. I guess you can submit your questions through Board Connect. If you don't have them tonight, then you still have a couple of weeks to submit them, and we can get them in Board Connect or try to answer them in Board Connect. I know you're used to getting a report tonight and then coming back in 2 weeks, but this one is a little bit different.
Yep. And Madam President, I just want to thank educators from our TAs to our parents at home, to our teachers in schools and principals to really rally around even a difficult year with Delta and Omicron impacting us, to really continue to look at the board's goals and guardrails as a shining light, the lighthouse that we're going to seek and move forward. And as you saw from graduations, things have become more and more regular in schools that were expected, with staffing, with supports, professional development, all of the key ingredients for building capacity in employees that they feel comfortable taking on the challenges that we have to meet the board goals. Team effort.
Okay. Seeing no questions.
Oh,
Kelly?
President Melanie, can you hear me? Yes. This is Member Lessons.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go on.
Okay, thank you. I wonder, we have a complicated funding formula, but as I look at this particular chart, I wonder if Dr. Bishop could really for the public just kind of maybe briefly explain why certain schools may have an average cost per pupil that's substantially different than other schools.
Sure. That's a great question, Member Lessons. So through the president to Member Lessons, as well as just to speak publicly, there's specialized programs sometimes in schools. And so not all schools have similar programs, and some programs are more expensive than others. And as we've shared, with whether it's school within a school for an immersion program, or whether it is a special education program, an additional CTE program in a school. CTE is also an expensive because of the number of students and the expertise to the classroom are different as well. So not all programs are the same, and not all schools receive those. But this is all funds that go into it. So we are going to create some charts where you can pull out any specialized program and just look at the general education classroom. But the challenge is, and especially at that Jim has shared, is that we then have to ask the question, when we put more money in a school, shouldn't we expect that learning? So if we have students that have a higher need and we're answering it with additional staff, should the expectation of learning still be there? And we'd have to ask ourselves as educators, well, yeah. Whether it's a behavioral need or an intellectual need, we are putting funds to it, but we should have the same expectation that children learn. So that was something that when that came up, is like, well, wait a minute, this school has this program or this program. It really, what was put back is, well, what's your expectation with those programs? Does it change? And so that, again, we look in the mirror instead of out the window. We have to then self-reflect. And another thing that we have and that we like to talk about too is like, well, my kids are different than your kids. And that is true. And that's why we heat map it with socioeconomic to know, we know more headwinds just by the Jinx study in the 1960s that created Title I, that kids are learning, but some kids start, with more headwinds. They start further behind. Maybe they didn't have some experiences that are, quicker for learning. So title money, it was called Chapter 1, turned to Title I. That is to make up the difference of homes. And so when we have title money going into these schools, they ask the same thing. Well, you have title money, so what would be your expectation of learning? And we can demonstrate, I see some of these this year learning, if you look at Chester Valley and Muldoon, they come to mind as outliers. We know that they have a lot of headwinds for their kids, and they are, that's a husband and wife team that's leaving us, some powerhouses. So we know that their improvement, they're outscoring schools that have greater assets than they do. So, and this is what this should be done is like, well, what's happening there? What are they doing? Again, it's not to have a race. You could say that the school district is the only race we're in is when everyone crosses the finish line. Your mission says success for all students. It doesn't say, well, success for those that are in this school or this school. So that's why all means all. And that's why we look at this to say what's going on. So what we want to do is say, who's breaking the odds? What's happening there? And is the money being spent well? And that's what Jim is asking, saying, okay, if I continue to fund this, where's the difference maker here? What are the difference makers? And that's what we want to bring back to the board to say, if we're serious about meeting our goals and guardrails, these are the difference makers is what we've discovered. Because Jim is figuring out the funds and we're looking at your educational outcomes per funds. Would that be fair to say, Jim?
That's certainly the direction we're headed over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's working for the school districts who have switched to this way of budgeting. It takes away some of the vagueness of making decisions.
Yeah. And what we hope to seek is ability for buildings to utilize additional funds in the manner in which they see will make the return on, not the return, but the value of the investment. So if it is, I don't really need another position here. These folks are taking extra kids here. I want to do this. I mean, to really have some freedom with the accountability. So not, I can do what I want and not be checked, but I'm taking responsibility for this. I believe I can make a change. The funds I want to use in my building, I'd like to be more creative with them. That's the end goal for student learning, to be able to have schools answer those questions. Mm-hmm. Now, it's going to be difficult. I mean, all with agreement of CBAs and everything else, but that's the ultimate goal, to find the value of the investment that Anchorage school district taxpayers, state taxpayers are making for our children, because they should make a difference. And we want them to make a difference, and we can learn from each other because we know it's happening, and we need to spread that wealth of the people who are in schools that are making it happen.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Bishop, would it be possible to get more information as to what the auditing process looks like and how how the school would get their name attached to their dot and following Jim's process, and maybe what the hurdles are with the schools that are still remaining?
Sure. That's a great question. Every school will have a dot because every school will have a place and time. This one is just a screenshot. When you hover over all those dots, they'll come up, but it just depends on where the cursor was at this time. So all of our schools are being, we're looking at all the schools and all the programs to bring back to the board the value added. And there might be a more expensive program, but it is absolutely a top priority of value to us. And so It doesn't mean that it's only based on this. It just means it's ability to ask questions. But we're going to create this right now. Edunomics has our STAR data doing this. And we wanted to look at growth data as well, not just summative data. So these are already public using former state data, because we haven't received this data. They've taken prior years data and put money that all been audited money. So we go through an audit in November, and that will be the solid numbers that our audit is, and then they can upload them. Again, these are monies and outcomes from this year map, but last year's money. When we do AK Star, it'll be this year's money, this year's map. But all schools, so it's not just some. And then what you can do when you get into the system is you can say, I only want to look at schools with similar kids, because we know that there's different things. And then we just take only the schools with a 75 percentile or 75% a higher socioeconomic status or a lower socioeconomic status. Or what we want to do is we've studied movement of kids no matter what your wealth is, and the same thing happens. Wealthy kids who keep moving also show up as impacted their learning. Yeah, but that's a great question. But just so everyone knows, the schools that show up is just because it was a screenshot. But you can hover. But this isn't done because schools are not all equal. The size of the school too. Muldoon is about twice the size of Chester Valley. So you also need an N. And you had asked the question about what went into that member lessons. The size of the school also does as well, because efficiencies of just, a small school of 250 still has one principal, and a school of 450 might have one principal. So you see, even if you took just the amount of money in a school just for a principal, it would look different. So if that explains it just at the simplest terms, there's some staffing that you just have to have.
Absolutely. Okay.
But those are great questions, and they elicit more questions, which is what this is about. Growth is about creating a team that is moving in the same direction and looking to the future, not thinking and wallowing in the past, because if we do that and expend our energy, our kids won't learn. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. At this time, I'd like to accept the report. If we can get a motion to accept the report.
Madam President, I move to accept the report as presented.
For a second. Did I hear a second, Member Higgins? Second. It's moved in second to accept our monitoring report for June 2022. Any discussion? Seeing none, any opposition? Then the report is accepted as presented. Thank you, Dr. Bishop and staff. Thank you guys very much. And that brings us to item E on our agenda. This is our public comment. This is the first section on our agenda where individuals may sign up to speak to the board about things that are important to them, but not items that may become before the board for a decision. So that's kind of tricky, but we have to remember that. So welcome to our first opportunity of the evening for public comment. Individuals have signed up in advance. We have set aside an hour. When you came into the boardroom, you would have been given an opportunity to pick up our guidelines. So we want to welcome you. We're happy that you're joining us. If this is your first time, there are a few points that we'd like to make sure that you are aware of. So during public comment, board members will not answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. This is the public's time to speak and the board's time to listen. Comments on non-agenda items or non-action items. If you are here to participate in public testimony, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Each person is allowed one opportunity to testify on a non-agenda or a non-action item. Sorry. We don't have any action items tonight, however, well, at least not at this point, but an action item is first introduced and second by board members. The president will open the floor for discussion, and then you'll have 3 minutes to talk on that action item if there is one. Some real simple rules for us so that we are respectful of our time and space. Do not attack members or speakers' motives. Speakers may point out what he or she believes to be a natural consequence of a board action, but may not engage in speech that personally attacks others. We ask that you refrain from disturbing the meeting, which basically means, and I sometimes forget this myself, so I'm going to apologize in advance. No cheering, no applause, no outbursts. Attendees will not be permitted to interrupt the business of the school board, which includes the members of the board. No profanity and no foul language, no waving of signs, flyers, or posters. And with that, we have individuals signed up. And I think Mr. Angst, I think you are good. Okay, so we will take Corey off. He already did his piece. Next, we have telephonically Danielle Kemp. Mr. Kemp, can you unmute?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, all right. Thank you to the board for having me tonight. My name is Danielle Kemp, and I am the president and co-founder of the Alaska Coalition of BIPOC Educators. And first off, I would like to say a hearty farewell to Dr. Bishop. You have served the district well, and I thank you for your service, and I wish you well in whatever you may be doing in the future. And I would also like to welcome Dr. Bryant within that farewell. I have high expectations for you. I know that you're going to shake things up in a very positive manner, and I look forward to that shakeup because disruptions, healthy ones, are good for any system. I have something to bring up tonight. A little while ago, I received about a little over $40,000 worth of bells and chimes from a Mr. Herman Seidel. He is a widower. His gracious donation was to bless the ASD with these bells and chimes. These are top of the line chimes. The last communication I had with the arts department was that they were going to receive them from Russian Jack Elementary School. As you know, I've given my keys up to the school and to the music room. But I'm just kind of checking up on the process because he wanted to dedicate those bells and chimes to his late wife, Lynn Schmidt. And I just kind of feel it is, we should do right by Mr. Seidel and his late wife, Schmidt. He wants to dedicate them, have each case have some sort of thing, commemorating her. So if we could, please check on that to make sure that we honor his and her donation as much as he wants to honor the ASD by giving them. I also want to mention that hiring of educators of color, is very important to the ACBE, hiring and, making sure that we keep them, not firing or forcing them to get out of the ASD by whatever means. I also want to highlight Mountain View Elementary, Dr. Claire Hill. From what I hear, she has hired a slew of BIPOC educators there. Where she got them, I think everyone should be knocking on Dr. Claire Hill's door to see how she did it. Because as you hear, as I hear, well, there are no BIPOC educators around. There's the workforce is not there. Nope, she found them. Ask her where she got these wonderful folks from, and let's try to repeat that process throughout the district. And finally, I would like to kind of give a plug and a shout out to our Teach Truth Rally.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Next, we have Carmen McGee. Carmen McGee. Welcome. And you have 3 minutes. The timer will be right down in front.
Okay.
Look this way. Can you see us down there?
Oh, yes, now I see it. Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Carmen McGee, and I was a former teacher for ASD for 12 years. I currently have 2 children enrolled and one that's starting kindergarten this year. He's very excited. My children attend the school that just had their charter renewed this last year. And I'm very concerned that there is some teacher intimidation and bullying, which has created a toxic work environment at this school. My sponsor teacher was wrongfully terminated and put on the do not hire list. Consequently, other staff members at this charter are looking at...
I'm sorry, Ms. McGee, we can't, items that are in process that are personnel, we really should not discuss them publicly because they're gonna at some point come to the board.
Oh, okay. So should I wait and do it then or no, not at all?
You could submit written comments to the board. It's personnel matters that are in the process of being settled.
Oh,
it's just inappropriate to talk about them in an identifiable manner at board meetings.
Okay.
So
don't continue is what you're telling me.
No, I'm saying you can continue if you can find a way to continue without talking about a rehiring of a colleague or a.
Well, okay.
We did pause your time if you want to.
Well, let me see here.
They're just processes that each employee has access to and should remedy, or not remedy, but at least they have access to them.
Right.
And until that process needs to be a reserved process.
Okay. Well, I guess I can start here.
Okay.
Okay. So I homeschool year round, and there are items that I would love to begin but can't right now currently due to not really having a sponsor teacher. And I'm not the only one that's dealing with this. All of them are. Let's see. I usually meet with my sponsor teacher at the end of May, and I haven't been able to because she's no longer there, if that makes sense. I guess I'm just asking for your support to help resolve this, which it sounds like you guys are taking steps to do that already.
If there's a process.
Okay.
That needs to be preserved.
Right, exactly. Okay, well then I guess that's all I can say because the rest of it sounds like I can't. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you. Next, we have Colette Thibodeau. Telephonically. Colette? Okay, I don't see Colette. We'll come back if there's time. There's time. Benjamin, is it Drabert? Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Is it Dree or Dre? Bert?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Dealer's choice.
Okay.
All right. Time's going to be right there when it starts.
It's right here.
Oh, right here. Sorry. Okay. So my name is Ben Drebert. I have 5 children currently enrolled at a charter school here with ASD. First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for the recent renewal of our charter. My children have benefited greatly and have been thriving there for 3 years. And we hope that to have many more. As you can see, we've got one more on the way. So in a few years, they'll be there. Unfortunately, during that time, the environment at the charter school has become increasingly toxic. I won't mention the individual because you just said we can't do that. And it's also been dysfunctional, resulting in the loss of numerous teachers and staff and many others who are currently looking for alternate employment. They're living in fear of bullying, intimidation, and retaliation. and the ASD has promised not to tolerate this type of behavior. These problems have had a negative impact on my children. So basically, we're asking for the board to look into the procedures at our charter school. I'd love to share with you the glowing reports we have on our teacher, but we can't mention that here at this time. Yeah. So I guess I'll conclude with saying, Dr. Bishop, thank you so much for your many years of service, and enjoy your grandbabies. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Rochelle Parker. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening and thank you. I'm Rochelle Parker. I'm a mother of 2 children at Kincaid Elementary, and I'm here as a volunteer with the Anchorage chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And we're here to introduce the National Be Smart campaign, which raises awareness that secure gun storage, keeping guns locked, unloaded, and separate from ammunition can save children's lives. Unlike other gun safety education programs, Be Smart emphasizes that it's an adult's responsibility to keep kids from accessing guns, that every adult can play a role in keeping kids and communities safe. Our nation is reeling this week following the horrific shooting at Robb Elementary School, and it seems like there's a never-ending string of mass shootings that keep occurring before Uvalde and in the days following. So we need to act now in our community to prevent gun violence, especially because guns are the #1 cause of death for children and teens in Alaska. In 2019, the biannual Youth Risk Behavior Survey showed that 49% of Alaskan high schoolers could access a loaded gun at any moment, and 25% of high school students said they had seriously considered suicide in the last year. And that was pre-pandemic, so I'm sure that's gone up. Also in 2019, the U.S. Secret Service analysis showed that 80% of school shooters under 18 obtained guns from home or from the home of a friend or relative. So secure storage is the way to start addressing these issues, and Be Smart is a perfect place to start. I've given you some RAC cards here because it's a non-political program, and its only agenda is to start important conversations with parents about secure storage to save kids' lives. We've already established Be Smart partnerships with the Juneau School District and the Fairbanks North Starborough School District. In Juneau, 1,200 Be Smart RAC cards like these were passed out the last 2 years to households there, and it's also being implemented into a middle school hunter education program. In Fairbanks, these RAC cards have gone out to about 14,000 students starting last fall. So as a starting point, we would love to make these available to ASD to go home to households. Other options would be to teach Be Smart in safety and wellness curriculum, have tables and discussions at school open houses and PTA meetings, feature it on the website for ASD, also to work with school security officers and make sure that they are educated on Be Smart. We have a chapter or a partnership with local pediatricians to give out these RAC cards and gun locks.
Okay, thank you very much. And that, let's see, I'll go back to Colette. Okay. So we just had a little technical difficulties. We're watching for one more. There she is. Okay. Colette? Can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. I did not get that email about how to call in. So, my name is Colette Thibodeau. I'm a mother of a current sophomore of Chugach High School and a graduate of class of 2021. I'm a full-time shift worker as a 911 dispatcher, and I'm a parent volunteer as much as I possibly can. And currently I'm trying to get the PTA going for Chugach High School. I welcome the new superintendent and want to advise him that the bar is set high, and I have many expectations, no pressure at all. My number one concern, as always, is our children's safety. In light of recent major events concerning active shooters, I implore you to stop putting safety issues on a one-size-fits-all bond. With the bond being voted down, you have now jeopardized our children's safety by not securing buildings. I also would not oppose that each school has an SRO, not one to share amongst many schools. Number two, I have talked to so many parents, so many people that would be parents and admin about parent involvement and access to grades. We need a better system for parents to access grades, assignments, and progress. There are too many platforms to try to keep track of, and it's beyond frustrating. Some platforms show different grades from what the kids see, and vice versa. All right, I am fairly savvy with technology and still struggle. I can't imagine what parents with multiple kids, jobs, and lack of computer access have to do to be involved. And like I said, I've been within the school district with my kids for many years now, and this has been a common frustration. I don't understand why everybody has to have something different and then making it difficult for us to find. And we saw that through COVID, and we've seen it even before COVID. So those are two of the things that I can think of now that I would like to see addressed. I know there's lots of issues on the table, but children's safety and parent involvement should be priority. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great night.
And thank you very much. Okay. So Dr. Bishop, before we go to the consent agenda, I think you had a couple of individuals you wanted to introduce.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to do this, and I'll do it quickly. We have presented to the board our leaders that have been hired and different people moving positions, so that as you work with us, you can put a face with the name. So I would like to introduce to you Eric Visti. And he can just stand there, and that's Eric Visti. And he is the Senior Director of Elementary Education. The person to his right, our left when we're looking, is Dan Barker, who is leaving that position. And Eric is taking the lead. He's in good hands, as Dan will still be in our building. And presently, Eric is an elementary director. So we're welcoming him aboard. So thank you, Eric. I would also like to introduce you to Dr. Jason Halasny, who is the new director for charter schools back there. He's waving his hand. And give him a hand. There we go. And he has been a director of secondary education for special education. So he comes with a wealth of background in educating all students. And so we're happy with his special interest in charters. And I would like to introduce to you the new Director of Indigenous and Migrant Education, Miss Helena Batman, who, congratulations. She is presently, because she's helping us tomorrow so that we can support Senator Begich in the reading bill. He was the one who really carried the most weight. I know that the governor is going to sign it tomorrow, but we advertised or basically kicked off the READS Act for the state, and they have graciously asked if they could go back to Helena's school to sign the bill. So that's quite, Senator Begich would like that, as well as the governor. So we're happy. 3:30 tomorrow. And then finally, Dr. Diana Beltran is our new Senior Director of Teaching and Learning, which is formerly Jenny Knutson. And Dr. Beltran comes to us from Willow Crest with not only experience in our state, but also experience in the state of California. So these are new folks, and we're so happy for them, and we wanted you to see them. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming. And we just wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of what it's like. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. And congratulations to all of our new promotions. Let's continue on. Item F, Consent agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. And we'll have to do a voice vote because Member Lessons is not in the room.
Member Wilson?
Yes.
Member Lessons?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Holloman?
Yes.
Member Higgins? Member Donnelly?
Yes.
President Bellamy?
Yes. And that passes unanimously. Consent agenda is approved. Item G, there are no action items. Neither are there any non-action items. So that brings us to, and I don't think we have any other public comment. All right, Superintendent's update, item J.
Thank you, Madam President. And at this time, I do want to say thank you. The next topic we're going to talk about is a very serious one, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve. I do have with us Ashley Lawley, who is in charge of our safety and security. She's on the team with presently Rob Holland, being led by our interim COO, Rob Holland, as well as Steve Brown for safety and security. And I will turn it over to Ashley, who is going to share the updates and the information as we did with prior school crises and school tragedies with you to really take a look at ASD procedures and our practices to share our moving forward, really, what we've learned. And I know that this is recent on our minds, but Ashley has done quite a bit of work around it. So we're going to present it to the board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I regret to have to be in front of you just about 6 months from the last time I was. And if it's okay with the board president, much like I did for Oxford, I'd like to start by recognizing the victims of this tragedy. And since there are so many, if it's okay, I would maybe like to go around and each board member can say 2 names. If anyone has a hard time with it, I can finish up for us. But I'd like to start there if that's okay. So maybe we can start with Mr. Holloman with two of the victims' names, and then we'll go around. Oh, sorry. It should be in front of you. Yep.
Nevaeh Bravo and Jackie Cazares, ages 10 and 9.
McKenna Lee Elrod, age 10. Jose Manuel Flores Jr., age 10.
Eliana Eli Amaya Garcia, age 9. Irma Garcia, 48.
I think it's Uzela Garcia, age 10. Amory Joe Garza, age 10.
Javier Lopez, age 10, and Jace Carmelo Luvenos, age 10.
Layla Salazar, age 11. Miranda Mathis, age 11.
Eva Morales, 44. And Elithea Ramirez, age 10.
Yeah, is that Alicia? I don't know how to pronounce these names.
Annabella.
Okay.
Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez.
Thank you.
And Alicia Ramirez, both age 10. Kelly, can you
Maite Juliana Rodriguez, Alexandria Lexi Ania Rubio, both age 10.
And then we have Jayla Nicole Seguero, age 10. Eliana A. Torres, age 10.
Rogelio Torres, age 10. And on top of those 21 victims, there are also 17 others that were injured. Thank you for doing that with me. So key facts of this case. On the 17th of May, the shooter purchased his first assault rifle, which was one day after his 18th birthday. He had previously asked his sister to purchase a firearm for him, and she declined that request. And then on May 22nd, 4 days after he purchased his first rifle and 2 days before the shooting, he purchased another rifle. He did post photos of these weapons on Instagram, and he did share these photos with an old high school classmate. I think that's important to note because throughout these cases, we do always see that they publish you can see those indicators starting to rack up in the days before these occur. So I did want to point that out in this case as well. And then the day of the shooting, I know that it was very chaotic. It's been really hard to get accurate information about what happened. So I tried to only put in what I know to be as fact as it is today. So what we see there is that the shooter crashed his car right next to the school, and he did exit with the weapons. It was at that point that the first 911 call came through. There were individuals across the street at a funeral home who also alerted the school that he was walking towards the school with weapons. The shooter then jumped a fence and immediately started shooting at the school. He entered the school through an unlocked back door. He then barricaded himself in 2 conjoined classrooms for 78 minutes. Border Patrol eventually arrived. They gained entry and they killed the suspect. I do want to make it clear there that they gained entry by using the janitor's key. Key facts as in terms of the school response. So what they did. The school has a locked classroom door policy, and that is pretty restrictive. We actually don't see that a lot in terms of school policy where the actual classroom doors are expected to be locked. However, that day, the classroom that he gained entry in, that classroom door was not locked. The school immediately went into a lockdown announcement and very quickly followed up with an active shooter announcement. Based on the facts of the case, that pretty much lines up with what you would do. The rest of the school evacuated while the shooter was barricaded in the classroom, and they did set up an off-campus reunification site, which is also the standard for these types of situations. I do want to make it clear that our doors at elementary school are locked during the day, but the front doors are unlocked during drop-off and pickup times. Some important distinctions to note, some differences between Uvalde and what we do here at ASD. So Texas law requires active shooter drills. It requires behavioral threat assessments, and the state audits their emergency operations plans every 3 years. They recommend but do not mandate that doors are locked. Here at ASD, we hold quarterly ALICE drills. We update all of our emergency plans annually, and we conduct student safety assessments. To my knowledge, these are not mandated. Well, the emergency operations plan is mandated by the state, but they do not audit them every 3 years or ever since I've been here. Another key distinction is that the Uvalde Independent School District has an internal police department, which had jurisdiction over the event. That is common in Texas, where the school districts they employ their own police departments. And I think that contributed to the chaos at the scene because as more law enforcement showed up, it was still the Independent School District Police Department that had the jurisdiction. I want to make it clear here that APD has jurisdiction at all ASD schools. And then further, I want to make it clear that APD trains on solo entry for active shooter events. So some key takeaways for us with this event. You can see at the top there, and I had this at the top of every slide for the Oxford shooting, but I did want to talk about it a little bit more today. Student safety is an intentional act every single day. And to me, what that means is that every single person that interacts with students while they're in our schools have safety at the front of their mind. And it has to be intentional. If it's not, then that's how things like unlocked classroom doors that are supposed to be locked and how unlocked back doors happen. If it's not constantly at the front of your mind, it's not going to happen. With that comes a strong safety mindset. This will require a little bit of a cultural shift for us here at Anchorage School District. This is things like wearing staff ID badges. Off-site staff that are not located at the school should be checking in at the front office. Whether they're there to update a computer, to do work on the grounds, they should be checking in with the front office, and they should have their staff ID badge pertinent so everyone can see it. Obviously, there should be no propping of doors open. We're moving to recommend locking all exterior doors during school hours with one single point of entry. This is done at elementary, but I'm requesting to move that we implement this at secondary as well. And this is where it really comes into a really big culture shift for us. With that, it may be impossible to do that. Our students have, they go to work, they leave for lunch, they come back. So it may require that some doors are unlocked on the perimeter throughout the day. We work to mitigate how many that is. And if it's not possible to lock all of them, then it should be monitored. There should be a staff member monitoring a door if it is unlocked during the school day. We want to continue strong drill compliance. This last school year, we're at 97% for drill compliance, which is very high. But I do want to point out that one elementary school was 0.5% of that 3% non-compliance. In my mind, even that 3% is not okay. We should not have any schools not conducting any drills. And we do address these through evaluations. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of our future plans for that as well. And just real quick to talk a little bit more about the culture the mind shift that might have to occur here. I want to make it clear that we could spend $1 billion on making the most secure school that could ever exist. But if you do not have a strong safety mindset, none of that will matter. All it takes is one misstep for an instance like this to occur. And so it's really that mindset that matters way more than any security measures physically that we can put in place. So to talk about what we are doing and what we will do. So you're all familiar with the secure vestibules. And to the question that came up earlier, we currently have 14 elementary schools that are completed with these secure vestibules. We are doing 2 more this summer. And as everyone's aware, the bond did not pass, which would have done another 14 schools between next summer and the following summer. Now, just because the bond did not pass, we applied for a state grant for $34 million for projects completed. So essentially, it's a reimbursement for work that we've already done. But we do plan on using $20 million of that for those 14 secure vestibules. So even though the bond did not pass, this is our number one priority to be spent with that money. And the governor is supposed to make a decision about that funding this week. So hopefully we get a favorable ruling on that and we can move forward with the continued planning for these secure vestibule sites. We will be establishing a visitor management system, district standard. We are piloting that at 4, maybe actually 5 schools this fall. We hope by the second quarter to make a decision on that product and implement it throughout the district after that. Access control, which is keyless entry. We do this as part of the secure vestibule projects. We currently have 25 schools that are on access control. 17 of those are on our current district standard. So we do have to update some schools, and then those 14 secure vestibule schools, the 2 this summer, they will also get access control as part of those projects. And as a reminder, there is a duress button at each school, which immediately dispatches APD if it's hit. And to give you an idea of how that works, it's hit at the school. Immediately it goes into APD dispatch. It goes to the top of their list. It flashes. It's very noticeable that there's an event at the school. dispatch pushes that out, and everyone, they know that means there's an active shooter event, and they respond like that.
Ashley, may I add, the board may be familiar that this was tested at Denali Elementary School, Montessori, and office staff just heard something, and it was a domestic violence case where a stepfather and a boyfriend had a shooting incident with a gun, and the doors immediately locked. APD was dispatched. The person who was involved in it was stuck in between the vestibule. They couldn't get in to the building. We went and did lockdown, and it was under a minute that off-duty police officers who just so happened to have been riding heard that call and were at the school immediately. So this system has demonstrated that it worked. There were 4 police officers addressing the issue, from our SRO to 2 officers that were on duty in the area, as well as the off-duty, within 2 minutes. But the first one came under a minute. So we just wanted to share that the buttons have been utilized by our staff, and the response that we expected did occur. Even with people who weren't working, just because and I asked, wow, and they said, oh yeah, you hear a school shooting, you were there, that they're trained to directly go into the school for an active shooter.
Some other things that we will be implementing this coming school year, 22-23, an anonymous tip line that will be staffed 24/7. Implementation is ongoing, but we will be deploying that this fall. We may be starting with secondary and expanding that to elementary. So it might be a phased rollout, but we're still on the beginning stages of planning for that. Some further security training that will be happening next school year. The first one is Gaggle, which is a Google product that monitors student interactions within the ASD network. It's also monitored 24/7, and it sends alert for a lot of things, but the most we get them for is self-harm, nudity, and violence. So we're going to provide kind of more streamlined training for administrators on that as well. Student searches and emergency suspensions. This was actually something that came out because of the Oxford shooting, and secondary has already updated their student handbook to reflect those changes. Lastly, student safety assessments. I'm actually meeting with OCS and the FBI later this week for collaboration on that as well. And then, of course, we have the mental health initiative, which was presented to the school board by Dr. Jenny Knutson and Kate McClelland, to have mental health counselors in each of our elementary schools, at least to start with, and hopefully to expand. And of course, we want to continue our strong partnership with APD and the SROs. I did want to say that we are 2 SROs short for next school year. They've been selected, so they went through the interview process. They got selected to be SROs, but they are not confirmed for the positions, which means that I am not confident that we will receive those 2 selected SROs by next school year. Also, I think as most of you are aware, Sergeant Reynolds has been promoted. I'm very happy for him. Sad to be losing him, but it's a good opportunity for him. But that also means that we will have an acting sergeant. That sergeant will be located at Chugiak High School, so not here at the Ed Center like we are used to. APD is having trouble recruiting for SRO positions, and I believe it's directly tied to the political turmoil in regard to the value of SROs influencing the lack of applicants at APD. They are having a hard time gaining interest in the SRO program, and I think that that's a problem for us that needs to be addressed. And then lastly, exploring exercises that involve our muni partners. I'm talking specifically here about an active shooter situation. So kind of want to focus on internally first, doing an ASD level exercise, and then moving on with our muni partners, because they obviously have a role in this. We're going to have APD responding. We're going to have AFD responding. We're going to have the health department involved with the hospitals. And I think it's really important that we get all of those key players at the table together to talk through this situation. And then lastly, these are some things that we have not implemented yet, but will be implementing. Drill surveys. So this is something I've actually been wanting to do for a few years, but with COVID, and we are going to include secondary students in those surveys. And really what I'm getting at here is trying to gauge the effectiveness of our drills. I have a staff of 4, including myself, so it's impossible for us to get out as much as we would like to the schools to be there to evaluate their drills. We do that sometimes, and we try to, but I feel like getting feedback, especially from students, will be really helpful in order to help me prioritize which schools may need more help to have their effective drills versus maybe some other schools have a really good handle on it. We're also going to start handing out corrective actions warnings. And really all this is an increase of random inspections conducted by my department. It is not targeted at individuals. So if we see a teacher with the door propped open, we're not going to cite the teacher. It's a citation for the school. And we will expect follow-up on those warnings as well. You can see there a list of things we would use them for: non-compliance on drills, doors propped open, other safety violations. A door is unlocked that's not supposed to be unlocked. It's really just spot checking. And realistically, we could expand these warnings to anyone at ASD can give a warning to anyone. And that's the epitome of having a safety culture, is that anyone feels comfortable approaching anyone else in an organization and correcting them. And it has to start at the top there. So we'll be doing it internally just through my department first, and then maybe we'll look at expanding that further. Lastly, in August, so after principals come back before teachers are back on contract, we are going to offer a firearm safety instruction. It will be optional. We're not going to require that principals come. We're going to do this in conjunction with our SROs. But I've had multiple principals essentially request this. So we're going to offer that this summer, right before the start of the school year. And that's all I have, so I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lally. Questions? Yes, Member Holloman.
I was going to say, I don't think this has been repeated, but some 15 years ago, there was a SWAT team member, all of them participated, but they came to a staff meeting at each school to explain to staff what would happen in an active shooter situation, what they would be about, how they would handle it. And I have to admit, as a classroom teacher prior to that, my feeling was if there was an active shooter, it would be bad and it would go on for a long time and it would eventually end. But I came away really with a much better understanding of what they would do. And it also would let staff understand and facilitate more as something like this unfolds. I'm just wondering, has that been done since, or are there any plans for that? I mean, it's not something that has to be done every year, but every so often I think would be beneficial.
I'll let Madam President, through the President, I'll have to ask about the kind of things like that at staff meetings, but I want to assure the board that I don't know if you've taken the ALICE training, but it's quite extensive, and it actually goes into, it's not a presentation just to share, it's actually detailed empowerment of staff members to understand what would happen. And so perhaps we can get some codes for you to look at the types of professional development, but it's along those lines of understanding what happens when it's called, when would it be called, what do I do, my responsibility, what are they going to do, what should I expect when they come in. And it's actually, for being an online, it's corrects you right away, it empowers you to learn. And so I'd love to share that. So I do know, ever since I've been, because I've had some experience with SWAT teams that have come in and shared, but the year-to-year training, we find it like, it's just something else I have to do. But with that safety mindset of, it's really empowering for us. I would say for all employees as well as children, when our employees then teach, to be able to understand really their role, as well as empower them to make the decisions that sometimes we're not sure that we should make. by thinking that, I don't want to interfere with other people or, police. So I'll just turn it over to you, but I'd love for the board to take a look at that. It's actually pretty extensive.
And kind of along that vein too, those duress buttons that are hit when they were installed, and it was before my time, but when I came and started to inspect the schools and talk to the front office, I actually found that there was this barrier with staff. They were almost afraid of that button. And I think it was because when they were installed, they were told what the response would be like. So they were almost scared to hit it because they didn't want that response to happen by accident. So I've spent the last few years going out to the schools, trying to tell them it is way better to hit that and to have everyone show up and for nothing to be happening than to not hit it when it's needed. Two, I've been trying to get them to incorporate it into their drills, not to hit the actual button, but to at least as they're running, there's a plastic cover over it. Have someone hit it and then evacuate. Because if you're not doing it in the drill, you're not going to do it when it happens in real life. So I've actually been trying to kind of reframe the use of that button so people feel a lot more comfortable using it, because there was a lot of fear surrounding it because of the type of response that it does elicit. But I think it's maybe been long enough now where it's important for them to recognize that if you hit it, this is what's going to happen.
And that button is in the office?
It's in the main office, yes.
What classrooms have the intercom system is there a way to communicate without talking to the main office?
Not from
my classroom.
There's also Kenwood radios that most of the schools provide to all their classroom teachers. There's no buttons or anything in the classrooms that alert to anything in the front office, though.
Not seeing. Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. Did you have a follow-up or a new question?
Kind of a follow-up.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say the value to me was understanding what the resources and training of APD were specifically, like what would be coming to my school, and to some degree who would be delivering it, and it was very encouraging. I think everybody had a much higher level of confidence. Also, say at my school they installed that red button right by the bench where students with issues are waiting to talk to the assistant principal, and it got tested right away. So that's just one way to test it out.
Thank you. Member Lessons.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry that you're here making this presentation. Deeply sorry, but I did want to ask for clarification, maybe with about two of the issues that you brought up. When you said the ASD plans to use about $20 million for the vestibules that didn't pass on the bond, it's my recollection that the security items totaled about $16 million on the bond package. So I wonder if you could speak to that maybe $4 million cost increase. Is that, I don't know that I heard that it would provide for additional vestibules. So have the costs gone up 20%? And my second question would be to ask you to please elaborate more on what you mean by exploring exercises with our muni partners. Does that mean that we're having full-scale drills in our schools involving APD live simulations? That's where my mind went when you meant that, brought that up.
Sure. To get member Lessons through the president, I'm going to answer the second question first because I have a more clear answer for that. So what I've been envisioning essentially since I got hired, but just have not had the opportunity to do because we've just been responding to so many crises, is really more of a tabletop drill. Start with that. You should always start with that. Really, that gives us an opportunity to figure out what we have to shore up before we go and do an actual exercise. So this school year, that was my hope. We do a tabletop drill internally with ASD, aiming for the fall, and then we do, if they're willing, if they're able, I can't direct the muni to do anything, but I would definitely prefer to start with a tabletop drill. And then once we collaborate on that, there are always a lot of outcomes when you do tabletop drills, a lot of points that have to be figured out, worked through. And it's really important that you work through those after a tabletop instead of an actual exercise. So that's really my first step. I haven't planned for anything past that just yet. And to the second question about funding, I also want to make it clear that there's other security measures that are covered in that funding. It's not just for the 14 secure vestibules. It includes upgrading the last of our security cameras that are still on analog, as well as some other things. In terms of the $4 million discrepancy, I'd have to defer to the CFO. I don't know if we can talk to it today or not.
Right now, those numbers are draft because we don't have all the estimates we need, but we will be working through that over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So when we come to the board in August with an update on FY24 stuff and the way ahead on that, you should also expect or anticipate, assuming the governor does not veto funds, that there would also be a series of board memos with recommendations on the use of those funds.
Yeah, and Madam President, that's the key word that we are recommending to the board, given the incidents that happened and our assessment of them, that the funds be invested. And so, of course, the board can do additional bonds, can change direction of funds. It would just be a recommendation to move us along, given that, as we heard from our lobbyist, that this is kind of a year that all of our prior work, a lot of that being funds that we acquired outside of bonding, where projects were done by ASD are now, we applied for them for grants. And if we're given the grants, we feel the appropriate use would then be to support the safety. And that would just be a presentation to the board and a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Member Donnelly.
Thanks for all your work on this. My first question has to do with the scheduling of our SROs. As we know, our SROs have a 4-day work week, like all other APD officers. And when the Bartlett incident happened, an external gun threat came to Bartlett, we didn't have an SRO there because one wasn't scheduled to be there because of the 4-day rotation, and the other was on leave that day. So have you had any discussions or with APD? Are you planning to discuss that? I don't want to see that happen again, that we have a high school that doesn't have an SRO at a given time. And there's got to be a way to shift like one SRO, because we have typically 2 at high schools, to any high school that has a vacancy, an empty moment like that, so that we're not left totally undependent from armed external threats like that.
Yep. To Member Donnelly, or through the president to Member Donnelly, I have had that conversation numerous times, even way before the Bartlett incident. I always recognized it as a vulnerability. Really, the answer we've gotten is that it comes down to the police union, and I really can't go further than that, except for that I believe it would be a fight to try to get their schedule to match up with ours. I will say that the SROs that I've spoken to do support that transition. I think they understand the importance of it. Something we've talked about to think creatively about how we close those gaps if we can't change their schedule. And this came out in light of the Bartlett incident, is maybe if there's a gap at any given day at a more high need school, we move an SRO away from a lower need school into that higher need school for that day. So we kind of can, and the lieutenant is working on this, how do we strategically fill any gaps with what we can work with in terms of what we have now?
Yeah, Madam President, I'd like to also add that as Ms. Lawley shared, it is, SROs recognize this as well, but the provision for that is covered in the collective bargaining agreement. And so the collective bargaining agreement is the holdback on that.
Yeah, just to clarify, I discussed that because it was the factor that led to the gap, but my specific recommendation right now is to deal with exactly what was suggested there. And just because the collective bargaining agreement says what it says doesn't mean we can't take from a school that has 2 SROs and move them for a day to one that doesn't have any. And that's what I'd like to see coordination of.
Yeah. Member Donnelly, I totally understand. I was just sharing the why, the seminal understanding. So we have year after year after year brought this up, and as well as our SRO. So it's not a new issue, but the work on it has been well over 6 years. I bet Dr. Johnson probably for 10 years has brought this to discussions. And so where we can make these fixes, the bigger picture is, as well as I think administration and many of at the city has identified this as well for value of schools. So I just wanted to provide you the why of that to let you know it wasn't for lack of resources and reaching out.
So I have a question about you said the safety training, or what do you call it for you're going to start with principals for what exactly, what does that training look like?
You're referencing the firearm safety instruction?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one, it would be really quite basic in terms of what do you do if you find a gun in all different circumstances. We've had several where they were in backpacks. In one example, the teacher pulled the weapon out of the backpack. You should never do that. If you see the weapon in the backpack, you should close it and immediately bring it to a secure location. So it would start even basic like that, all the way down to learning, whoever's comfortable with it, learning how to clear a weapon. It's another thing that came out of the Bartlett incident. One person knew how to, another person didn't know how to. And instead of trying to find the people in a chaotic situation, if all the admin at the school know how to do it, then they can respond appropriately. But really that's down to each principal's comfort level. But since both the Bartlett incident and this Uvalde shooting, I've had multiple principals request this kind of training to provide it. So we're going to look at doing that.
Okay. Member Donnelly.
I had a question about options we might have to provide non-lethal defensive capability for classrooms. There's school districts all over the country are dealing with this with some novel and original ideas. I mean, one idea has been put forth is to merely add a fire extinguisher to every classroom that would be under lock that the teacher could access, because fire extinguishers are pretty good defensive, non-fatal, non-lethal weapons in an emergency. Do you have any thoughts on what we might be able to do in our classrooms?
Through the president to Member Donnelly, I mean, I'm willing to look at and explore options, right? Always. Everything that's been brought to my attention so far has either violated fire code or, in my opinion, created a more unsafe situation, or the potential for a more unsafe situation if someone else were to get a hold of an item, a non-lethal item that could be in there. I would really just defer to our ALICE protocol, which what's the L, inform, evacuate, the barricade. Mm-hmm. We don't say it, but part of that barricade is throw things, right? We drill that at the secondary level. At elementary, we don't have them participate in that, but it's made clear to them that anything can be turned into a disruption. And that's really what it is. If you throw something, even a loud noise, a distraction is a distraction, especially when you have a weapon in your hand and you have tunnel vision. Your sympathetic nervous system is activated. One tiny little disruption can go a very long way. And that is why the ALICE protocol is as it is. You can there's a teacher that threw a basketball at a student. It ended the situation right there. He had a weapon. He was pointing it at someone. The teacher threw a basketball that was on his desk, and that stopped it. So I think the ALICE protocol really has that built in without necessarily needing to add anything more into the classrooms. And yet another thing for teachers to have to always kind of be thinking about and have at the ready. What do you have in your room that can work in that situation? And that's why we drill on it as well.
I'd just like to add that it's the C, the counter in ALICE. And honestly, when we teach it, I would say employees as well as parents sometimes question like, what, but we teach it specifically for that. And the purpose of that is through the research in different places where this has happened, our students like to behave. They like to obey. And a piece of property like a chair or a desk is someone's property, so they wouldn't pick it up and throw it because the teacher wouldn't like that. Basically, that C isn't necessarily to create this. It's literally for a distraction and empower children to say, it's okay to bust a window. It's okay to turn over a bookcase, especially when the teacher isn't with them, like if they're on the playground or something. So the C is really the trickiest part, and it's for counter, but it isn't to create this fighting front. It is literally for distraction for seconds to save lives. Distractions save lives. Barricades save lives. People try to get in, it's barricaded, they go somewhere else. So, but just so you know, the idea behind that is part of this system where they are given permission to take their heaviest textbooks and destroy them if they have to. Yeah, computers, anything.
Thank you. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Lawley, for the presentation. You mentioned the change in recommendation regarding locked doors. Is that a decision that will be left up to principals? And then if the recommendation isn't adhered to for one reason or another, is that documented with your office, if not made public, to document the plan that the school has in place?
Through the president to Member Jacobs, we haven't really gotten far enough along in those conversations to put in place any kind of procedures or policies of what it would look like. I have to have those conversations really hand in hand with secondary to see, one, what they can manage with their staff. If we expect unlocked doors to be monitored, do they even have the personnel to be able to do that? And so we're just not far along yet to really answer that. But one thing new that my department is doing this year is providing principals with what I'm calling a best practices document, and that will be one of the recommendations that is on there.
So, Ms. Lawley, your office is you track or you work with the senior directors to track that schools are going through the trainings, like the ALICE training. How is that tracked?
Yep. So the ALICE training is actually tracked through the ALICE platform. We pay to have the licenses for those trainings. And so every staff member from Dr. Bishop down to the student nutrition workers get an email, and it goes into their mandatory training, and we have access to that. So we do follow up throughout the year with our staff members that have to complete the training.
Madam President, you follow up on the schools then, so not the individual employees that we all have, but what about how do we track the schools to get that 97%?
Right. Yep, so it's twofold. So we have a mandatory online ALICE training for every single ASD employee at the beginning of every year. That's it's all on the computer. Then we have the 4 ALICE drills every year. So those are essentially 2 different things, right? And we monitor and track both of those. We, 2 years ago before the pandemic, we requested that secondary email my department with the time and date that they were conducting their ALICE drill so we could go out and provide feedback. So we started to do that, and then there was a pause with COVID. And that's where now this year we're trying to introduce those drill surveys as well. We track all the drills through Google, but if you're ever in our office throughout the year, you see that big whiteboard that has a bunch of green and red dots on it. That's a visual of the drills that are conducted. So we also keep it on that whiteboard. With Steve just today cleared it for next school year. So if you're ever curious, you can just pop in, and it's a really good quick visual about the drill compliance throughout the whole district.
Okay. Member Lessons?
Yeah, thank you. I had one other question that came to mind. Early in the presentation, you sort of alluded to the shooter in Uvalde having new images of guns, firearms pop up on social media. And then you also suggested that ASD is going to be using this Gaggle software. And I'm just wondering if that has like the AI capability to look at images. I mean, my sense is that ASD has the capacity to screen for triggering text, right? You know, if a student is talking about suicide, for example, that's something that will draw someone's attention within the system. So do we have the capability, if a student is using an ASD device, to screen not just for words of concern, but images of concern? You know, if a student was suddenly to share photos of their new gun.
Yes, but only if it is done through the Google ASD network, which means they have to be on Google Drive communicating or writing anything. They don't even have to send it to anyone. But yes, it does also monitor for photos. So if we get a photo of a weapon, then we automatically get an alert for that. What we cannot do is monitor their social media accounts, which in this situation is what he did. Now, however, he did share photos with a friend. Say it was done on our network, yes, we would be notified of that. If it's done outside of our network, we would not be.
Okay. Member Donnelly.
So there's a lot of new innovations for defensive measures for classrooms. An example is they have ballistic night whiteboards you can buy that are bulletproof whiteboards. But it's just something that, you know, people are coming up with new things all the time. I think it'd be really helpful to have your office do an analysis of what's out there so that if a PTA was interested in investing in something, they would have your expertise to help guide them and what might be the most effective types of things they could invest in.
Yep, through the president to Member Donnelly, I'm more than happy to look at any options, to evaluate any options. I will say we have pretty high standards for what we decide to put in classrooms. And really, I also do want to focus again on the point that we can spend a lot of money securing our schools, and it can mean absolutely nothing if it's not at the forefront of our minds at all times. And I really want to drive that point home because it is going to be a bit of a culture shift for ASD as an organization.
Madam President, one of the items when we say about the mindset or behaviors, it's going to be hard. So if we do have just one access point in the front, some of our buildings are huge, so that's going to affect, you know, kids getting to class, but also our principal shared with us that lots of kids prop open the door for other kids. We want them on to school. Well, then we would have to have a culture where we would provide to say that's from child to child relationship, from adult to child relationship, that we don't do that in our school. So when, you know, there's over 2,000 people, it is a mindset and a culture shift of we want to be safe here. So it's education as well. But if it isn't saying that this is the highest value of this behavior, the locked doors aren't going to matter because there's no bells on the doors, you know. So it's as quick as just pop it open. We're going to do it this one time. I do believe to the point of the specific thing about this one with a rock being in the door, that's going to, every time we have something, we're like, oh, last time it was the check of the backpack. Like if you were to check it, you know, and talking to the child, letting the child go home that day, like all of those things, I want to assure the board that we study them, we do after actions, where are we maybe, you know, have the growth to do it, you know, and what we've shared is the growth is really in our behaviors as well. We have narrowed down access tremendously since Stoneman Douglas. It's just that when you picture schools, some of them are just difficult to do and to monitor because kids or other people get to them first. And so the mindset from the top down is that when we see it, we have to do something about it to move forward. So that's just some of the mindset that we're talking about that match behaviors that we do. And we see that as a challenge, but also a priority for us.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't think that we can expect the children to do the right thing if we're not doing the right thing ourselves. And that's where I really get at the point of every staff member should feel comfortable correcting another staff member if it's putting people at risk. And we did talk a lot about student behaviors and how connected they are these days. You know, you have friends all over the district. It's not just in your school like it was probably for most of us. And so there is a lot of movement between the schools as well. There's a lot of schools that are trespassing students that shouldn't be there during the day. Even if they're just coming to have lunch with their friends because their friends happen to go to that school. But again, we can't expect the students to model behaviors that we ourselves are not either doing or correcting. And I think it's really important to continue to have those conversations with all of our staff.
And as another layer to this, the whole safety picture, I would like to hear what you think, not now, maybe later, Board Connect. Just a simple thing is just being smart, securing, reminding parents or, guardians to store their weapons securely. It's not that they can't have them, just store them. And so I don't know if that's...
Yeah, we actually spoke before she came in here, before Rochelle testified.
Okay.
So we had a few minutes to, I actually gave her some ideas already and 100% on board with that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not seeing any more hands. Dr. Bishop?
No, Madam President, I just appreciate this because I know that the board acted on the bond with safety in mind and has for the last few years. So we appreciate that. And we just, again, want to instill a mindset of safety that it's all of our responsibilities, not the board put this policy, administration's doing this, teachers are doing this, kids are doing this, but that collectively as a community, we care about the safety features such as this. As well, this is a mindset. Lock them up, folks. Think about that, as well as what happens in our schools. Let's not prop open doors, things like that, and just break the rules just because we're late to class, things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Lally. Good information. That is sad information, but good information. And that brings us to school board and administration comments. Shall I start with you, Mr. Holloman? Do you have any comments?
I did have a follow-up comment from our joint session. Several people took time to talk about the value of King Career and non-college pathways. And I know from my time in ASD, one of the things I'll call title, because it seems to come and go, is the offering of tech classes in the local high schools and middle schools. And at times, there have been directors that clearly push that. Other times, it's been thin in our comprehensive high schools. And my concern has always been that for a lot of kids to get some of the high quality classes, they've got to commit to going to KCC for half a day. And a lot of our students won't do that. They don't want to leave their neighborhood school. They don't want to leave their friends. So I would like to know where we're at right now, and are we trying to expand the offerings of what I'll call trade classes in our local high schools? I'm not asking for an answer tonight, but I've always seen that as a way for students to gain some of the skills from it without necessarily deviating from their track. Because that's the other thing that's concerned me. Once you make that commitment to go to KCC full-time, that's kind of where you're at. I believe strongly that kids should be able to weave back and forth. And if they want to take carpentry, that's neat. If they decide they'd rather take physics after that, that should be there. And it shouldn't be there shouldn't be a big median to cross. So I'm kind of wondering what our trend is, if we're offering more in that direction at our neighborhood schools. I think it would be healthy for KCC as well if we do. But absolutely, I'm a proponent that practical skills with the potential of that leading to a trade is something we need to focus on more, as several speakers indicated there as well. And I do think we need to realize the impact that events like Texas have on our staff, on our teaching staff, particularly when I look at the mosaic of the students. Like anyone, I kind of look at it and go on and do what I'm doing. But other times, very much what I see are the faces of students I've had in the past. I see my classes. I see kids I know. And I understand that it's just good luck we got through without that happening. I mean, we've taken a lot of steps, but there's still things that can get right past it. And I wish I had a solution to it that really truly worked, and I don't. But it just to hope that somehow we can understand it does ramp up the emotions. It makes people more susceptible to emotional outbursts. It makes it more difficult for people to do their jobs because that is at the top of their mind. And hopefully we understand and treat each other a little better internally inside the district when things like that happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Member Wilson.
Just want to, again, say thank you to Dr. Bishop for your 6 years of service to our kids and our community. Very much appreciated. And also thank you to all of our educators, our cabinet, all of our educators and staff for what you do for our kids every day. For those of you who don't have the summer off, thank you for your continued service this summer. For those of you that do have this summer, some summer time off, then I hope you truly enjoy that. Also just want to state that our next communications committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 3rd at noon. So thank you.
Thank you. Comments, Member Donnelly.
I very much appreciate the discussion on school safety. It was really helpful to find out what's been developing over the last couple of years, because it's been a couple of years since we really dove into these subjects. And I'm really pleased with a lot of things that I heard there, especially the option we may have to fund the safety projects that were on the bond that failed through other sources. I think that's really, really important to keep the ball rolling on hardening our schools. And I do want to continue to examine what might make sense within individual classrooms to give them some sort of defensive capability. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Shaw, I skipped right over you. Do you have any final comments?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I did want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Bishop for her service. Wanted to thank our educators working to make our summer school program successful. I have a youth attending at Bartlett, and he's making some pretty impressive gains and making up for lost time. Some things that didn't get accomplished through the school year. I appreciate the detail-oriented conversation regarding school safety and acknowledging that that's a shared responsibility, both inside and outside of ASD. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Member Higgins. You noticed that I put you last this time, right?
Okay, I got 3 hours and 20 minutes. I appreciate that. Want to start by, again, like everyone else, appreciating the service for Superintendent. She's had a long career in education. It's been very successful with a lot of things. She'll always look back at what could have happened, and I hope she focuses back on all the stuff that did happen, because it affects kids when they come out. You got more graduation, it changes their lives, and it carries on for generations. So that should help going to sleep at night and looking forward. And I got a feeling we haven't heard the end of it. I'm sure she's going to be out there someplace within it. Tom Ross is not here, but as we recognized last time they brought it out, It should be Colonel Ross, because his service has been a long career in service to this country and to the community. Retired colonel in the military before he came here. Then he worked here. Once again, a continuation of public service and serves recognition for that. It's unfortunate he's not here for the board to express it like he did, but quite a career. I appreciate the SMART document a great deal. I think it means a lot to somehow get that information out there. There were so many tragedies that take place within that. And as we look back on the safety issues that we're facing and we see what happened in Texas, every one of these situations that I've looked back on, they're all different. In some cases, it was identified the risk and there was an intervention. In others, it's unpredictable coming in. I recall going through an expert brought in after we had a threat at South with somebody making an email type statement. It wasn't an active threat, but it was interpreted that way. He was encouraged to write how he felt. And it brought in an expert in it and said the biggest thing you need, first of all, is your counselors. You need to identify the risk before you start reacting with the pillbox kind of situation. And when it comes to responses of local law enforcement, our experience is nothing but outstanding. And probably the two losses here in Texas is the loss of life and the injuries and the appearance that somehow or another you can't count on law enforcement in this community. You can. They've got an outstanding response to us. They've done a great job, and I have nothing but the highest remarks for what they've done. And with the closing comment I'll make is that with all those cupcakes, the blue icing, if you want to walk out with blue teeth and blue everything else, I recommend it. It's really kind of interesting. And if it's okay, I'd like to reserve the other 3 hours and 19 minutes for next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Kelly, I'm sorry, member lessons.
Thank you. I will echo my gratitude for Dr. Bishop for her years of service. It was a really touching tribute. So thank you for the folks who put that together. Nuts and bolts, there's a finance meeting at noon on June 14th. And then I really wanted to take this moment. We've been talking about mental health needs in our schools. We just spent a great deal of time thinking about school safety. I think that there's a piece of the puzzle that's missing, and that is the role of school start times in all of this. I strongly urge this board to consider moving forward in some way to make our middle and our high school start times begin no earlier than 8:30 in the morning. There's research to show that only about 15% of high schoolers get healthy sleep. Average high schoolers sleep about 6.5 hours a night when they need maybe 9 optimally. And we know that when adolescents sleep fewer hours than they need, they're more likely to report depression. One analysis found that underslept teens getting 6 to 7 hours a night were 17% more likely to think about hurting themselves than those sleeping 8. Sleeping even less for 5 hours a night made them 81% more likely to consider self-harm. So I think that as a school system, we need to think structurally about, and not just about how to allocate additional funding and people, but think structurally about how we optimize our school days in support of the ultimate goal, which is student learning, but also the intangible goals of keeping our students safe. Thank you.
Thank you, member Lessons. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to give my gratitude to the opportunity to serve. I have really worked with wonderful people. ASD is a good place to be, and our employees come every day, ready for the challenge to help educate young people for our community. So I'm very proud of that, to be a part of that team. And the answer to Mr. Holloman is yes, 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 yes. Over the last probably 5 years, it's actually written into the goals to expand, but it's also been expanding for about 5 years now into schools. And part of the goal is actually that more students take CTE courses because the success rate of students in CTE courses. So we had to build out additional, but understanding that career technical is very different than the traditional vocational, that it actually has a wider expanse. But to that, just wanted to share too, that King Tech is now involving the college on the skill certificate side too, so that kids can use college to get those skill certificates that are also needed, because it is a skilled vocational jobs are skilled. They are highly skilled. And so I just want to share that the work being done at secondary is progressive in that area. And it's good news. We'll report it up. I believe it's going to be on a guardrail soon. Is that correct, Dr. Johnson? It's been building. So that's great news. Thanks.
Okay. And with that, I'd just like to also thank, I know Mr. Roth his last day was last week. We will see Dr. Stock at the retreat. And, but Dr. Bishop, you are welcome to come back to the retreat if you like. But we will understand. We will understand if you choose not to. But your service, your leadership is, you have left a legacy, and we thank you. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, just one more thing. There's a new Dr. B in town. So
oh, that's true.
He's willing to be there and excited for it.
Madam President, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. See no opposition.